Hello, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly, and today is one of our more fun videos. We've been testing 4 of the brand new bladed irons launched in 2017. Normally they only come around every 3 or 4 years, but we really are sport for choice in 2017. Now, bladed clubs are very much a status symbol. They are really for the only very best of ball strikers. They also tend to be for high swing speed players. They tend to be for players who like to shape the ball and who prioritise a soft feel. There's certainly a lower level of forgiveness in these clubs compared to game improver clubs, larger clubs. That said, the bladed models we've tested so far in 2017 have been surprisingly forgiving. The 4 models we've picked are the Mizuno MP-18, the Titleist 718 MB, the TaylorMade P730 and the Callaway Apex MB. Slightly different lofts in these, so the Mizuno and the Callaway are 34 degrees in the 7 irons we've got here, while the Titleist and the TaylorMade are 35 degrees. We've got them all in the standard S300 shaft, apart from the Titleist, which is in X100, so slightly firmer shaft, but nothing too major. We put them up against each other on the GC2 Launch Monitor using premium golf balls to get some real ball data and assess different areas of performance to hopefully give you an inkling as to why you pick one iron over the other. So without further ado, let's start with the looks of these 4 irons. Okay, so it goes without saying, all these irons look absolutely fantastic. Interestingly, they've all got this kind of groove in the back, through the middle of the back of the head. It's probably more pronounced on the TaylorMade and the Mizuno, but they've all got it. The sole on the Titleist is very rounded, which should give you a bit more forgiveness through the turf compared to the TaylorMade, which is the other end of the spectrum, with a very flat sole, which means you have to be very precise on your ball striking. All of them look fantastic. The Mizuno definitely has the thickest top line of the 4, and the Titleist definitely has the thinnest top line. That said, they're all pretty compact down by the ball, not exactly confidence inspiring to hit, but they all look great from every single angle. Okay, moving on to sound and feel, and sound has a big influence on the way you interpret the feel of a golf club, which is why we enlisted the help of a decibel meter using our phone, the microphone on our phone, to pick up subtle differences in sound between these clubs, because when we hit them on the range using premium golf balls, they all sounded very, very similar and felt very similar indeed. If I had to guess, before I used the decibel meter, I would have said that the Mizuno was slightly softer than the other 3, and the Titleist had perhaps a slightly louder sound, which contributed perhaps to more of a firmer feel. They all felt soft, but just those subtle differences with the Callaway and the TaylorMade in between the 2, and actually, incredibly, the readings we got from our decibel meter kind of backed that theory up. So the Mizuno was peaking at 63 decibels. The TaylorMade and the Callaway was 64 decibels, and the Titleist was 65. So that theory was backed. Unfortunately, the app is a little bit clunky to present to you some readings on the video. You just have to take my word for it. Those were the readings that we got. So it's interesting to see that my theory and thoughts when I hit the clubs were backed up. Don't get me wrong, it is a free iPhone app. I don't think it's the best quality in terms of detecting the sound. I'd have liked it a little bit more sensitive, but that said, it was a nice indicator, something a bit different to give us a little bit more insight into how these clubs actually sound and feel, and the Mizuno probably came out on top. Okay, so moving on to the performance of these 4 irons. Some pretty interesting findings. As you'd expect, these irons don't hit the ball a long way. They're very traditionally lofted. It was actually the Titleist and the TaylorMade, which do have the weakest loft at 35 degrees, that went the shortest distance. They carried 155 yards for both of those. Interestingly, out of those 2, the Titleist was also the highest spinning, and therefore had the steepest descent angle, was at 50 degree compared to the others, which were around 46, 47. So with the Titleist, you're definitely getting a higher ball flight, higher spin, and definitely lots of stopping power into the greens. Would that work when hitting into the wind? You might lose a little bit more distance compared to the other models, especially when you consider, although the TaylorMade carried the same distance and the ball speed was actually slightly down with the TaylorMade, it was the lowest spinning out of the 4. So while it might launch quite high, the lower spin kind of gives you that kind of stronger ball flight that I think a lot of players would prefer. The other two, the Callaway and the Mizuno, were kind of right in between. The Callaway went a yard further than Mizuno. I think it was 158 compared to 157. So like I said, that extra degree of loft contributing to a little bit of extra distance. Generally speaking, the distances were all very consistent. If I had to pick a club on performance alone, it would probably be the Mizuno or the Callaway. Didn't feel like the Callaway was shooting off the face, even though it went further than all the others, marginally. And when I deleted all my gross mishits from my data testing, all the distances were very, very consistent indeed, so there really wasn't much in it at all. Okay, so forgiveness. Actually, this is a surprising category for me because you might think that bladed irons don't offer much forgiveness at all. And actually, they prioritise workability. So if anything, they don't want that horizontal MOI. They want the club to be able to shape the ball and curve the ball, which is forgiveness is all about keeping the ball straight and keeping the ball speed up. I'd say the club that I felt gave me the most forgiveness was the Mizuno or the Callaway. Again, it just felt like they had a little bit more meat behind the ball, a little bit more solid across a slightly wider area. But all in all, they were very similar in that regard. A little bit of help on off-centre hits, but not loads. So if you do have a particularly bad strike, you're probably going to miss the green. Right, so it's all important decision time now. Which iron out of these four blades would I pick if I had to, if I was good enough to play blades, to go in my bag? Which club would I pick? And that's a very difficult decision because if I was good enough to play blades, I'd happily play any of these four. They feel and look absolutely fantastic. I'm going to try and eliminate them one by one to get to a decision. Starting with the Titleist, I would eliminate the Titleist simply because it went a bit too high for me. I felt like I was losing a little bit more distance than the others, and I would worry about the ball flight that I got with it into the wind with that high launch and high spin combination. I think it would climb a little bit too much in the wind, so I'm going to eliminate the club based on that. The next club I'd get rid of if I had to was the TaylorMade. I love the look of this club. It's probably one of my top two in terms of looks, but it was just a little bit more difficult to hit than the others. Felt like the forgiveness wasn't quite there on those off-centre hits, and for that reason I would get rid of that. This leaves the Mizuno and the Callaway, and I don't really think I can separate these two. They were both very, very soft feeling clubs, very, very good performance from the sweet spot, excellent distance, consistency. They're actually two quite different looking clubs. One of them is a matte finish, one of them is a glossy finish, and for that reason I'm going to bin off the Callaway because I definitely prefer the matte finish of the Mizuno. What I like about the Mizuno, not only is it the softest feeling, we've proved that in our decibel test, it's got like a lighter section to frame the hitting area, which I like. The top line is actually quite thick, so it's quite confidence inspiring for a blade down by the ball, and it seemed to offer a surprising level of forgiveness on off-centre hits, and that's why I'll pick the Mizuno over the other four. Don't get me wrong, it was a very difficult decision indeed, but for me the Mizuno just pips it. If you're thinking about switching to blades, definitely something I would consider. If iron play is your strength and you like the precision of a forged club, these clubs are all forged, I think it's something that you shouldn't really dismiss. A lot of brands are making mix sets now, so you could definitely opt for these in a 7 to pitching wedge perhaps. One thing to be wary is if you are a mid to slow swing speed player, you might see a bigger drop off in performance on those off-centre hits. High swing speed players definitely should be better suited to blades than perhaps low to mid swing speed players who might see a little bit more of a drop off in ball flight and carry distance when they don't quite catch it. But there you go, that's my verdict. I've picked the Mizuno, I'm pretty happy with my decision. Let me know what you think of this test, we'd love to hear from you. Would you have picked a different model based on the results that we experienced in this test? But for me, from Burley Park Golf Club in Stamford, it's goodbye.